are 9 days into Season 2 and we have an immediate early season balance patch due to a lot of players complaining, like Doomfist being OP, Ramattra being weak. So here we go, balance patch December 15th. For Doomfist, his rocket punch cooldown has increased from 3 seconds to 4 seconds so you don't get punched and stunned around as often. And now his power block damage mitigation threshold to empower the rocket punch has increased from 80 to 100 damage. That's a nerf. Doom's passive, the best defense, the temp health you gain per target has been decreased from 40 HP to 35 HP. I would say these Doomfist nerfs are in the right direction, right? You don't want as much stun uptime on the rocket punch. It was really frustrating to get ping-ponged every 3 seconds because you get stunned on the initial impact, and if you get hit into a wall, you'd also get stunned again for the 0.25 seconds, which was added in the Season 2 original patch. That being said, you want to be careful now because a 1 second increase from 3 to 4 seconds is a 33% increase relatively speaking, which means Doomfist can't punch in and punch out to engage and disengage as easily, and to empower it's longer. And the passive change, the temp health is a medium in between the 30 and 40 HP, and now it's settled at 35. It also has that other buff where the overhealth cap was increased from 150 to 200. Overall, this did bring Doom's power level down quite a bit, especially with Roadhog still running rampant. I place him in B tier. Okay, for Orisa, her primary fire damage fall off range has increased from 15 meters to 25 meters. That's a buff. And the Terra Surge, her ultimate, now pierces through barriers upon impact. Terra Surge was one of the worst ults in the game because it was easily counterable with Protection Suzu or speeding out of it, teleports, and barriers before, but now this change allows Terra Surge to be played into Sigma Shield, Ryan Shield, Ramattra Shield, and actually be a threat in those tank matchups. And this primary fire change means Orisa no longer has her primary fire projectile damage start tapering off between that 15 to 25 meter range. In other words, she's stronger at the mid-range distances now. Okay, Ramattra's movement speed has been increased in Nemesis form by 20%. Previously, you'd have the 20% movement speed penalty. That's just basically removed now, and you'll move at normal speeds in this form. The bigger change is the armor bonus being increased from 150 to 225 HP. Now you're at 675 total HP once transformed instead of 600. His Void Barrier's cooldown has also been decreased from 15 to 13 seconds, so it has a higher uptime. So that's 3 significant buffs to Ramattra, who was already creeping up to be better than people expected as people had more playtime on him. I think this makes Nemesis form a lot better because previously people were saying Omnic form was the best form to stay in, but with Nemesis no longer getting that move speed penalty and way more armor, it's actually way more valuable to start pummeling people instead of just being a block stall bot. The Void Barrier cooldown reduction is a nice little change. I don't think that's too game breaking. The cooldown's already still quite long at 13 seconds. Ramattra is probably closer to B or A tier now. For Sojourn, the primary fire spread has increased by 28%. The Disruptor shot no longer slows enemy movement, and the power slide cooldown has increased from 6 to 7 seconds. Listen, I'm sorry, I don't think these Sojourn nerfs are quite enough. The primary fire spread doesn't really matter at medium to long ranges because you're not going to be spraying at that point, right? If you didn't know, your primary fire or that SMG spread can be reset by firing 9 bullets at a time. So at long ranges, you're supposed to be tapping that anyways. So this really only affects her at like really short and medium distances. But like if the enemy hitbox is that close to you, it doesn't really matter that much. Removing the slow on Disruptor shot was actually a pretty good change because it was super annoying when Sojourns would just throw it at a choke and then me as a support, I can't cross through it safely because since it slows, I'm going to be taking a lot more damage. And this kind of gives me the freedom to kind of walk through it a bit more. I'll still take damage and be at, kill threshold for the Sojourn, but it's not as potent. And now the slide cooldown being increased by 1 second, that's not that much to be honest with you. I think Sojourn is still an S tier hero. She went from S plus down to just S, which is meta. Tracer's pulse pistol damage has now been reduced from 6 to 5.5. I think this change is a happy medium between the 2 damage numbers that Tracer had. So she was 6 damage in Overwatch 1, which got nerfed to 5 damage in the early parts of Overwatch 2 beta and all of Season 1, and the Overwatch League players were still playing on the patch where Tracer's damage was nerfed to 5, but then they buffed it back to 6 early in this season, in Season 2, to compensate for the fall-off bug that happened near the end of Season 1, and people were like, you know what, this is a little bit too much, like it was right to have nerfed it down, so this is just the in between the 6 and the 5, we settle at 5.5, right? There's one less tank in Overwatch 2, less CC, and less things that can stop Tracer from just dominating, and the DPS passive, of course, so I'm okay with this. Now for Ana, my main, her Biotic rifle damage and healing has increased from 70 to 75. The Biotic grenade effect duration has increased from 3 to 4 seconds. Alright, I have a lot to say about Ana because I've been maining her for 6 years. I don't think she's weak as a hero per se. She kind of just fell behind as a product of the fast-paced nature of the meta and how Overwatch 2 was all about being able to survive as a support, and Ana couldn't quite do that when Kiriko comes into the game and has a free teleport, a Suzu, and wall climb to juke things, and Ana's got a singular sleep dart skill shot that she has to hit or else she's probably cooked. Now, the Ana change to the healing number from 70 to 75 is negligible, and the anti-heal effect lasting a bit longer is a nice change, but Suzu from Kiriko can still solve that problem. However, the damage change from 70 to 75 actually changes a bunch of her matchups, specifically the Tracer, Symmetra, and Cassidy matchups. When fighting the Tracer matchup now, Ana only has to hit 2 shots instead of 2 shots in a melee or a nade or whatever, so it actually helps her in that flanker matchup a lot. And when you face 225 HP heroes like Symmetra and Cassidy, you can now kill them in 3 shots because 75 times 3 is 225 exactly, as opposed to only dealing 210 damage, requiring you to hit 4 shots on those heroes. I think this will take Ana from a B tier hero back up to an A tier hero, especially at the higher ranks, because that Tracer matchup is really significant up there. It might not matter so much in the metal ranks because Tracers aren't one-clipping her as easily anyways. But this is good because it gives you an option beyond just forcing Kiriko every game, although I do think she is the #1 choice still. And then Kiriko received a Protection Suzu nerf where the invulnerability duration has been reduced from 1 second to 0.85 seconds. This is most definitely not enough for Kiriko. I think Kiriko is still the S+ premier choice support, but the Ana buff allows you to kind of play Kiriko Ana a little bit more than having to force Kiriko Lucio or Kiriko Mercy all the time. I think there are probably 3 other ways to nerf her off the top of my head. You can reduce the amount of healing each paper does. She does 130 total healing. That can be nerfed down to 120 maybe. Swift step cooldown can be reduced from maybe 7 seconds to 10 seconds because having a 7-second free escape button is a little ridiculous. And of course, Suzu is one of the best abilities in the game now since it cleanses all CC, so I think nerfing the cooldown from 15 seconds to 20 seconds, so players have to be a lot more conservative with how they use it, similar to how Baptiste's Lamp is, would be a nice change to her. And that's it for the HOTFIX patch 1 week in. There are some other changes talked about by Alec Dawson today where they're going to be giving Roadhog a soft rework with no more one-shot. Junker Queen's going to get quote-unquote spicy buffs, potentially Reinhardt getting a Fire Strike buff, and more support changes for the mid-season patch, so stay tuned for that.